I never believed in love at first sight, until the day I met her. It was one of those ordinary Tuesday afternoons, the kind that feels like any other until it suddenly doesn't. I was sitting at the corner table of my favorite coffee shop, nursing a latte and trying to catch up on some work emails, when she walked in. She wasn't the type to turn heads in a loud, obvious way, but there was something quietly magnetic about her. Her hair caught the sunlight in a way that made it shimmer like gold, and when she smiled at the barista, it wasn't just a polite smile, it was the kind of smile that seemed to light up the entire room. I know it sounds cliché, but I literally felt my heart skip a beat. I tried to focus on my laptop, but my eyes kept wandering. And then, as if fate had decided I wasn't going to get any work done that day, she tripped on the edge of the rug by the counter. Not a dramatic fall, just a small stumble that made her cheeks flush a delicate pink. Without thinking, I stood up and reached out instinctively. "Are you okay?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide, and laughed nervously. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks." It was such a small interaction, but the way she said it, the little crack in her confident facade, made me want to know everything about her. I didn't realize it at the time, but that moment was the beginning of something I would never forget. Over the next few days, I found myself returning to that coffee shop more often than I had any real reason to. I'd tell myself it was the ambience, or the espresso, but deep down I knew it was her. And then, as if the universe was finally getting tired of my hesitation, she came in again. This time, she noticed me right away. "Hey," she said, walking over to my table with a tentative smile. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual while my stomach did somersaults. We talked for what felt like 5 minutes but ended up stretching into an hour. Her name was Emma, and she had this effortless way of telling stories that made everything she said feel important. We laughed over the smallest things, the barista's ridiculously complicated order, the way the sun hit the window at just the right angle, but there was also this underlying honesty in our conversation, as if we'd both known for a long time that this was going to matter. By the end of that afternoon, we had exchanged numbers. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling like I was walking on clouds, a grin I couldn't shake plastered on my face. The next few weeks were a blur of texts, coffee dates, and long walks. Every message she sent made me feel lighter, and every time I saw her, it was like I was discovering a new shade of happiness I hadn't known existed. We talked about everything: childhood memories, dreams for the future, even the small, embarrassing quirks we tried to hide from the world. And somehow, without either of us really saying it, I knew we were falling for each other. But falling in love is never just about the blissful moments. Soon enough, cracks began to show. Emma had a past she didn't talk about much, and there were moments when she would get quiet, distant, like a storm was brewing behind her eyes. I tried to ask gently, but she would just shake her head and say, "I'll tell you when I'm ready." I wanted to push, to demand the truth, but something in her vulnerability made me hold back. One evening, we were walking along the river, the city lights reflecting off the water, painting everything in shades of gold and silver. Emma was unusually quiet, and I couldn't take it anymore. "Emma, what's going on?" I asked softly. She stopped walking and turned to face me, her eyes glistening. "It's complicated," she whispered. "There are things about my life, things I've done, people I've hurt. I'm afraid if you knew, you wouldn't want me anymore." I took her hands in mine. "You don't have to be perfect. I don't want perfect, I want you. Every messy, complicated part of you." For a long moment, she just stared at me, and then she broke down. Tears streaming down her face, she finally began to tell me everything: her past relationships, mistakes she'd made, moments she regretted so deeply she'd carried them like stones in her chest. And somehow, even with all of it, I didn't feel scared or pushed away. I felt closer to her than ever, like I had been given the honor of seeing her soul in its rawest form. That night, we held each other under the streetlights, the world around us fading into insignificance. But love, as I was about to learn, doesn't come without challenges. Emma's past wasn't just a story, it was a life that had consequences, some of which began to spill into ours in ways I hadn't anticipated. There were people from her past who didn't want her to be happy, and suddenly, the carefree days of coffee dates and long walks felt threatened by shadows creeping in from all sides. One day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice on the other end was cold, sharp. "Are you dating Emma Lawson?" she asked. I felt my chest tighten. "Yes, who is this?" "This is someone who knows the truth about her," the voice said. "And if you care about her, or about yourself, you'll walk away." I hung up, my hands shaking. My mind raced with questions. What truth? What danger? And more importantly, why hadn't Emma told me anything yet? When I confronted her that night, she didn't deny it. She just looked at me with those same glistening eyes, and I realized she had been carrying this weight alone for far too long. "I didn't want to drag you into it," she said quietly. "I thought I could handle it on my own." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Emma, whatever it is, we face it together. I don't care about the past. I care about us. That's all that matters to me." For a brief moment, relief washed over her face, but I could tell the storm wasn't over. There were things we couldn't see yet, battles we hadn't fought, and secrets that were still waiting to surface. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, an unexpected twist happened. Emma disappeared for 3 days. No calls, no messages, nothing. My mind went to the worst possible places. Had someone from her past taken her, or worse? I tried to reach out to friends, to family, but nobody knew where she was. When she finally returned, exhausted and disheveled, I could see the fear and exhaustion etched into her face. "I had to make sure it was safe," she said, barely above a whisper. They're still out there watching. I didn't want you involved." That night, as we sat together in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that loving Emma wasn't going to be simple. It wasn't going to be about shared smiles or perfect moments. It was going to be about trust, resilience, and standing by each other through the storms life threw at us. We clung to each other, silently promising that no matter what came next, we would face it together. Little did I know, the challenges were only going to intensify, and the path to the love we dreamed of was going to test every part of who we were. The days after Emma's disappearance were a blur of tension and fear. I tried to focus on my work, on my life, but my mind kept drifting to her. Every phone vibration made my heart jump. Every sound outside my apartment made me imagine the worst. I wasn't used to this kind of fear. It wasn't just about losing someone. It was about not knowing who, or what, was involved. Emma tried to keep a brave face, but I could see it in her eyes that the danger wasn't over. She was carrying secrets heavier than anything I had ever encountered. And the truth? The truth was stranger, darker, and more complicated than I could have imagined. One evening, she finally broke the silence. We were sitting on my couch, wrapped in a shared blanket, trying to find a moment of peace. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a cup of tea. "I need to tell you everything," she said. "There's no more hiding." I nodded, holding her gaze. "I'm ready, Emma. Whatever it is, we face it together." She took a deep breath and began. Her story was convoluted, tangled with mistakes, regrets, and people who had been wronged in ways I couldn't even fathom. Years ago, she had been involved with a man who was controlling, manipulative, and dangerous. It hadn't been a romantic entanglement so much as a toxic situation she had been trapped in. Leaving him had cost her, socially, financially, even legally. There were threats, shadowy figures who had made sure she knew that if she tried to move on, there would be consequences. As she spoke, my stomach knotted with every revelation. My first instinct was anger at him, at the situation, at the universe for putting her through so much. But that was quickly replaced by admiration. Emma had survived all of it. She had come through the darkness with a heart still capable of love. And then came the part that shook me to my core. The people who had haunted her past had tracked her again. Not only were they aware of her, but they were aware of me. She didn't tell me this to frighten me. it was the brutal reality she was protecting me from until now. "They've been following me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They know about us, about how close we are. I didn't want to involve you, but now it's too late." I felt a cold panic settle in my chest. My mind raced. What could they want? Money? Revenge? And most importantly, would we survive this? I didn't even have time to process my fear before she continued. "I've been fighting this alone for years. But I can't anymore. I need you, but you have to promise me you'll be careful. If we're together, it's not just us, we're a target." I swallowed hard, the weight of the reality pressing down on me. "I don't care about the danger," I said firmly. "I care about you. We'll face this together, no matter what." She looked at me, eyes glistening with tears. "Are you sure?" I took her hands, holding them like a lifeline. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next few days were a frantic whirlwind. Emma and I started taking precautions, changing routines, avoiding predictable patterns, and keeping communication limited to encrypted messages when necessary. Every glance over the shoulder, every unfamiliar car passing by, made my heart race. But amidst the fear, something incredible happened. The danger, paradoxically, drew us closer. We laughed more freely in stolen moments, held each other more tightly, and discovered a depth to our connection that I hadn't thought possible. But danger has a way of revealing character, and mine, as well as Emma's, was about to be tested like never before. One night, as we were leaving a secluded cafe, a figure stepped out of the shadows. I felt my body freeze, my pulse pounding in my ears. The figure was tall, imposing, and unmistakably someone from Emma's past. "Emma," the man said, his voice low and threatening. "You should have stayed away." Without thinking, I stepped in front of her. "Leave her alone," I said, my voice louder than I intended. He smirked, eyes cold. "You don't know what you're getting into." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. The tension lingered like a thick fog, suffocating and inescapable. Emma clung to me as we hurried home, and in that moment, I realized love wasn't just about soft words or romantic gestures. It was about courage, sacrifice, and standing together in the face of real danger. The following weeks were a test of endurance. Emma and I became partners in a silent war, navigating threats, deciphering cryptic warnings, and constantly watching our backs. Every message, every interaction, was layered with tension. We couldn't trust everyone, and we couldn't predict the next move of those who sought to harm her. One night, after a particularly tense day where we had narrowly avoided an ambush, we sat in my apartment, exhausted and tense. The silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken fears. Emma rested her head on my shoulder, and I could feel her trembling. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. I kissed her hair, trying to convey strength I didn't entirely feel. "Me too. But we're in this together. That has to be enough." It was in that vulnerable moment that something shifted. The fear, the adrenaline, the uncertainty, it all melted into a raw, undeniable intimacy. We held each other through the night, finding solace in a love that had been tested by shadows and threats. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope is fragile. And just when I thought we had found a small haven of safety, the stakes were raised again. Emma received an anonymous message. This time, the threat was personal. It mentioned my name, my life, and implied that if we continued together, harm would come to me. I could see the guilt in Emma's eyes. She had tried to protect me, and yet, despite all precautions, the danger had found its way to us. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was determination. If anyone thought they could drive a wedge between us, they were wrong. That night, we made a plan. Not just for survival, but for confrontation. We would face whoever had haunted Emma's life, expose the truth, and reclaim our freedom. It was risky, maybe insane, but love, true love, has a way of making the impossible feel necessary. We spent days gathering information, tracing connections, and understanding the network of threats that had loomed over Emma for years. Every discovery was a mix of fear and empowerment. We were no longer just victims, we were participants in our own story, choosing courage over surrender. And then it happened. The confrontation. It was late evening when we traced one of the key figures to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Emma and I approached cautiously, hearts pounding, hands gripping each other tightly. The air was thick with tension. We could hear faint voices inside. I took a deep breath. "Are you ready?" Emma nodded, eyes fierce. "Let's do this." We entered. Shadows danced across the walls as the figures turned, surprised to see us. There was a tense standoff, words exchanged, threats made, memories of past wrongs recounted. And then, in the heat of the moment, Emma did something I will never forget. She faced her fears head-on, her voice steady and commanding, exposing the truth, holding everyone accountable. I stood beside her, heart swelling with pride and awe. She wasn't just the woman I loved, she was a force of nature, unyielding and brave. And together, we forced the shadowed figures to retreat, leaving us with a hard-earned victory and a fragile sense of peace. Afterward, as we walked home, bruised but triumphant, I realized how much we had grown. Love had brought us together, but courage had solidified our bond. We had faced real danger, fear, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger, inseparable. That night, we held each other close, not out of fear, but out of gratitude and awe for what we had endured. The world outside still had shadows, and our story wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, and nothing could break us. The days after that confrontation felt surreal, like stepping out of a storm into a strange, fragile calm. Emma and I returned to our routines, but nothing was the same. Everything we had endured had left its mark, yet it had also created something deeper than I had ever imagined. For the first time, I truly understood that love wasn't just about laughter, coffee dates, or stolen kisses in the sun. Love was about facing fear together, holding each other up when the world seemed determined to tear you down, and finding beauty in the resilience you discovered in each other. Emma and I spent long evenings talking, sometimes in silence, sometimes sharing stories from our pasts we hadn't told even each other before. The shared experiences of survival and courage created a bond that went beyond romance. It was a partnership built on trust, understanding, and the certainty that, no matter what came next, we would endure. I remember one night in particular. We were sitting on the balcony of my apartment, city lights flickering below us, a gentle breeze ruffling Emma's hair. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I felt a wave of peace wash over me. "I never thought I could feel this safe," she whispered. "Even after everything, even with the shadows still out there." I smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's because we're together. We've faced everything side by side. That's what makes us safe." She looked up at me then, her eyes reflecting both vulnerability and strength. "I was so scared you wouldn't stay. That I'd ruin it for both of us." I cupped her face in my hands. "Emma, loving you isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other, every day, no matter what. And I choose you, always." Her smile was small but genuine, the kind that made my chest ache in the best possible way. And in that moment, I realized just how much we had changed. The threats, the fear, the shadows of her past, they were still there, yes, but they no longer defined us. They were a testament to our strength and to the love that had grown stronger because of adversity. Life didn't suddenly become easy after that. There were still moments of tension, reminders of danger lurking in the corners of our lives. But Emma and I had learned to navigate them together. Each challenge became an opportunity to reinforce our connection, to communicate more deeply, and to remind ourselves why we refused to give in to fear. I started noticing the little things that made Emma who she was. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the quiet hum she made when she was focused, the intensity with which she pursued her passions. And every detail made me love her more. Each scar from her past, each mistake she had survived, became a part of the mosaic that was Emma, a mosaic I wanted to cherish forever. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed by the intensity of our journey. I would catch myself staring at her in disbelief, thinking, "How did I get so lucky?" But then I'd remember the days of fear, the nights of uncertainty, and the courage we had both summoned to face the impossible. And in that contrast I understood that love, real love, was forged in fire. It was raw, messy, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. One evening, we were walking through the park, leaves crunching under our feet, the air crisp and cool. Emma stopped suddenly and turned to me, her expression serious yet soft. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything," I replied. "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter what challenges we face, you won't ever let go of us. Promise me we'll keep choosing each other." I took her hands in mine, squeezing gently. "I promise. I will never let go. We've been through too much to ever turn back now." We continued walking, and in that simple act of moving forward together, I felt the full weight and beauty of our journey. It wasn't about dramatic gestures or grand declarations. It was about the quiet, steadfast commitment we had forged through trials that could have torn us apart. Time passed, and slowly, the world began to feel safer. The threats that had once haunted Emma's life became distant memories, like echoes of a storm we had survived. She started opening up even more, sharing dreams for the future, plans for a life we could build together. And I found myself imagining everything with her, traveling, building a home, laughing over morning coffee, facing life's inevitable challenges side by side. One of the most profound moments came unexpectedly. We were at a small art gallery, wandering among paintings that depicted love, struggle, and human emotion. Emma stopped in front of a particular painting, an abstract piece, chaotic in color but somehow harmonious. She turned to me, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This," she said softly, "reminds me of us. Messy, complicated, and yet somehow beautiful. Somehow it works." I nodded, speechless for once. The chaos of our past, the fear, the love, the courage, it had all come together to create something unique, something extraordinary. And as we stood there, hand in hand, I realized that the story we had lived was far richer and more profound than anything I could have imagined when I first saw her in that coffee shop. Even now, months later, there are moments when I catch myself reflecting on everything we endured. The danger, the fear, the emotional turmoil, it all feels almost unreal, like a story from someone else's life. But then I see Emma laughing, or feel her hand in mine, and I remember that every trial, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, has led us to this point. I think about the lessons we learned along the way. Trust is fragile, but it can be strengthened by transparency and courage. Love is not just about the good moments, it's about facing the storms together and emerging stronger. And resilience, true resilience, comes from knowing that someone stands beside you, unwavering, even when the world seems determined to break you. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing from a lingering nightmare of our past fears. But I reach over, and Emma's hand finds mine, warm and steady, and the fear dissipates. It's not gone entirely, but it no longer controls me. It never will again. We've built a life that is rich with honesty, laughter, and shared dreams. We fight, we argue, we stumble, but always, we return to each other. There's a deep, unspoken understanding between us now, one forged through trials and nurtured by love. Every smile, every shared glance, every quiet moment of contentment carries with it the weight of our journey. And sometimes, in those quiet moments, I marvel at how far we've come. From that first stumble in the coffee shop to facing real danger, from whispered confessions to standing together against the shadows of the past, our story has been anything but ordinary. And yet, it has shaped us, defined us, and made us stronger than I ever imagined possible. I don't know what the future holds. Life will always have uncertainties, and love will always require courage. But I do know this, I've chosen Emma. Every single day, in small ways and in grand gestures, I choose her. And somehow, in the chaos and beauty of this world, she has chosen me back. So when I look at her now, laughing over something silly, or concentrating fiercely on a sketch she's working on, or just leaning into me as we watch the sunset, I understand something profoundly simple. Love, real love, is not perfect. It is raw. It is messy. It is terrifying. But it is also the most powerful force in the universe. And I would walk through any storm, face any shadow, endure any fear, if it meant I could keep choosing Emma, and she could keep choosing me. In the end, that's all that matters, the choice. The courage to love despite the obstacles, the commitment to each other despite the past, and the belief that together, we can face whatever comes next. And every morning, as I wake up and see her beside me, I remind myself, this love, this life we've built, it's worth everything we've been through. Worth every fear, every tear, every heartbeat that raced in terror and anticipation. Because in the end, we are together. And that is everything.